Hello and welcome to another Jay's Politics podcast, part of the Podcast 99 Internet Radio Network. You can reach us at podcast99.org or me directly at jpoliticspodcast@gmail.com, or you can reach me at jpolipodcast on Twitter. This is This Week in U.S. Politics, episode number 16. Today we are going to be talking about the new laws that are going into effect this week, or actually that have already gone into effect this week, in the state of Washington. Specifically, a few particular, how do I want to put it, various laws that I'm not going to agree with. And I understand why people want them in place, but I still don't agree with them. And so I just thought that this would be a show that I can go in depth about the new laws and see what you guys think. I have the live chat open, so please feel free to come on in. Let me know what's going on. Let me know what you think. As always. Now, you'll also notice, for those of you that have followed my channel, that check out my streams even after the fact, I've actually put this one in age restriction. And I did that because of the fact of the topics that we're going to be discussing. Some people might call me triggered, or they might call me a snowflake because of them. But I honestly don't care. I have no intention of monetizing this. I have no intention of promoting it with the Google ad network. I don't even come close to their standards at this point. So just throwing it out there. Next week, hopefully, I won't have to do that. But again, with the topic at hand, these new laws that have passed in the state of Washington, which there is over 300 according to the article, but they only brush upon the more, I don't want to say controversial, but the most topical ones. So with that, as always, I will share my screen of the actual article, and I'm going to hit this point by point on the actual articles. Now, where did I put that? There it is. It's all the way at the bottom this time. Probably because I haven't pulled it up in a while. All right. I have to admit, this is a pretty cool picture of the Capitol building here in Washington with the sundial. Maybe I'll get a picture taken out in front of it one of these days. But the article is New Laws Take Effect in Washington This Week by Rachel LaCourte. I hope I'm pronouncing your name right. She's with the Associated Press, not actually with the Olympian. This article was posted on June 6th and updated also on June 6th. In Olympia, Washington, more than 200 laws, not 300. More than 200 new laws take effect in Washington state this week, including a package of bills meant to address sexual misconduct in the workplace. Lawmakers ended their 60-day legislative session on time on March 8th, which, for those of you who have not been in Washington state, has not happened in a while. But I'm glad to see that they were. Let's see if we can do it 2 times in a row, their next legislative session. But most of the more than 300 bills passed take effect Thursday. Here's a look at some of the measures that are about to become law. Now, like I said, I don't agree with all of them, but it is some of them I do. The main package here is the workplace sexual misconduct. These new laws come in in the wake of the conversation about sexual harassment sparked by the hashtag #MeToo movement. The hashtag #MeToo movement is one that's always been, in my opinion, one that needed to be mocked more than anything. And it's not to make light of people who have had sexual harassment, sexual abuse, rape, or anything like that directed to them. And as a matter of fact, I'm actually going to stop sharing my screen for a second just so I can, give the eye contact and everything here. But I really want you to understand that 9 times out of 10, I am going to believe somebody whether they know me personally, whether I know them personally or not, if they tell me that they have been sexually assaulted, sexually harassed, and or raped, I'm going to believe them. However, I am not going to jump on the bandwagon to lynch the person in the court of public opinion. That person, the accused, has the right to due process and the right of innocent until proven guilty. I may not think that he's innocent. I may not think that, or she, as a matter of fact, or think that there's anything beyond but reasonable. There is nothing that's beyond reasonable doubt that will get him convicted. I will, or her, I will want the law to take its process. I want the I don't want a repeat of the Duke case, the Duke lacrosse team case. Say what you will about that. That was totally blundered by the DA being overly zealous. That was, you know, I I don't make it a secret. I do not care for social justice warriors. I do not care for their moral outrage at things. They can call me racist. They can call me a Nazi, whatever they want to call me. But I'm more for people and their free right of speech. I'm more for people their right to explain themselves. And above all, I defended this country for the defense of one document, the Constitution, which gives us our rights. And those rights, while not technically the right innocent until proven guilty written in the Constitution, I don't believe, I do believe in the right to due process. Allow the facts to come forward and allow them to be analyzed critically, not with emotion. There's a thing called, when you're talking about science and stuff, is confirmation bias when you're doing experimentation. If you allow if you allow for confirmation bias in your analysis of anything, especially when you are dealing with someone's freedoms, whether they're guilty or not, when you're dealing with their freedoms, you can run the risk of putting innocent people in jail. And I would rather see, and this is an old axiom, I would rather see 10 guilty people go free than one innocent person in jail. Rant done on that. Now, going back to this article, though, I do think that many of the points put into this article are, or put into this bill, are good points. But when it comes to these social justice movements, I have very little time or energy to spend on them. Sorry about that. So, in this package of bills, there is a measure that prohibits non-disclosure agreements to prevent employees from disclosing sexual harassment or assault. So, that right there, I think, is a great thing. I should take, for example, men can be victims of sexual harassment, sexual assault, and rape. But we don't hear about it because there's a stigma that men have to be tough and, should not be overpowered by women. BS, it happens. Deal with it. Women are not the only victims here. But going back to my point, if a man or a woman is sexually assaulted or harassed, they should not be shut up by having money tossed at them to settle. They feel like they want to settle, then there should be no non-disclosure agreements. You know, if you committed a crime, then that person needs to be able to come out and say, yes, this person did do this to me. Now, I don't agree that single point of contact or interaction with a person is harassment. I don't think that it is assault. I don't think that there's violence in every single action either. And I know there are many people that agree with me on this. But there are people that take things out of context even when they're the ones that are in the context of the situation. I work with I work with people on, let's see, there's 5 men and 5 women at my work. And I like to think of us almost like a family. We don't all work well together, and there are times where we have issues that come up, but on the whole, we can almost freely talk about things. There are times where certain things aren't warranted, but there are times where we can discuss things and even joke about things and understand that contextually we know each other's opinions. We've worked long enough with each other to know this. And I've worked at this job for 6 going on 7 years, and most of it in this one particular store. I know the people there. Whenever somebody new comes into the group, I tread softly, and so does everybody else because we don't know how that person's going to react. And we don't want to have the conflict. We don't want to have things where if we say something, it could be deemed sexual harassment or sexual assault. There are times where things can be, brushing up against somebody. Somebody might take that as offense as sexual harassment or sexual assault because they feel that their personal bubble has been attacked. In a small area that we work in, sometimes you can't help that. I'm sorry, but you cannot help but brush into each other. That I we should be able to defend ourselves against those types of claims. And that's what I'm trying to get at with these non-disclosure agreements because they also will allow me, if I am accused, to if no non-disclosure agreements are put in place by our employer over this, I could easily say, "No, I did not, you know, intend anything. We just brushed passing in the hallway or passing in the cooler, whatever, happens." But again, I digress. The point is, we, I digress, but we just we don't need non-disclosure agreements on this. Non-disclosure agreements are for other matters when dealing with a business situation that you don't want out in the public because you want to make a grandiose entrance for this business model or this product of the business. That's what a non-disclosure agreement should be for, in my opinion. I'm not a lawyer, but that's just my opinion. Another bill or provision directs the Human Rights Commission to create a work group, including representatives from the business community as well as advocates for those affected by sexual harassment, to develop policies that keep workplaces safe from sexual harassment. That that one right there, that's one I'm going to disagree with, and here's why. You are only taking those people. And when I say representatives from the business community, I'm thinking of shop owners. I'm thinking of CEOs of companies here in the town, etc. Not, or CEOs of major businesses or VPs, things like that, for like Amazon, Microsoft, etc. Here's the thing: who's going to represent the little guy? Who's going to represent people like me, like my coworkers, like the people at McDonald's, etc. Things where we are not necessarily going to be thought of in a committee or worker group like this. For the simple fact is, why do they care? Why should they care about what we think? How is this going to affect us? I might actually write to the Human Rights Commission and say, I want to be a part of this. Even if even if I were to lose my job at my job, and couldn't get another one, I would still want to be a part of this group because I feel like we need representation in this group. I mean, heck, if I could be a part of that group and get paid to do it, I would enjoy it. Now, as well, and why I think we're not going to get representation, or why we could even be steamrolled, is because we're talking about advocates for those affected by sexual harassment. Now, I know there's going to be actual lawyers and whatnot that have represented people who have accused people of sexual harassment, whether they've been found guilty or not. I don't know. I'm not going to go digging through everybody's case point because that's not the point of this group. But I also have a feeling that there will be advocates from, again, the group I don't like to deal with, and that's the social justice group. By having people like them in this group, it will prevent the regular discourse and debate that we would need to have to make sure that these policies are not too constrictive on the businesses, but also not too constrictive on the employees themselves. It's easy for the higher ups to think, "Oh yeah, this is a good policy," until it gets into effect down in the lower levels, and they're like, "Why am all of a sudden I'm having a higher instance of sexual harassment claims or sexual assault claims?" Things like that. I don't I don't want my brethren and sisters, the people like me in these lower levels that for a company can easily be overlooked. And I'm in a union position, and I still feel like that we can be overlooked. Even if my union were to be part of this work group, I still would not feel as representative as a whole for the people in my group, in my little niche, whatever you want to say, of this society. I wholly think that I would be, as a whole, underrepresented because they're worried about the businesses themselves and the assault victims and the harassment victims. And they're not the only ones that need to have representation in this. I don't know how the Human Rights Commission is going to go about this, to be honest. I mean, they've had since March 8th to have this in place, but I still might write to them and just say, "Hey, I don't know what your plans are for this point of view or this work group or work groups if they're doing it regionally um, if they're doing it regionally throughout the state." Because I mean, it would seem an awful inconvenience to have people coming from Spokane to Olympia to deal with this, or even Spokane to Seattle. Even if they flew, it's still an inconvenience, or even OMAC or anything like that. But I just I just want us to be everybody fairly represented, having the equal opportunity to be represented, not necessarily an equal outcome where everybody represents themselves. You know what I mean? I think I have a good idea of what it is for the average Joe working in our field. You know what I mean? Or in this sector. So I mean that take it for what you will. That's your thing, but that's how I feel about it. Sorry about that. I had to sneeze. All right. And the third law voids any employment contract, including arbitration agreements that do not have terms protecting an employee's right to file sexual harassment or assault complaints with authorities. This should already be included in the laws. There should not have to be a separate law for this at all. But I think it's fair that if it's not in the books and it's not clearly defined, what the heck? Why hasn't anybody put this to the state Supreme Court or even the Supreme Court of the United States? I don't know. But good on us for doing it. I really hope and feel that you guys will understand why this is important. We should not be stifling people from being able to speak out. Because again, it's not just for us, it's for them as well. They have a right to say, hey, I feel like I was sexually harassed, sexually assaulted by coworker, by a boss, whatever. And if the company is refusing to act upon that, or the employer, I guess is the best way to put it, is refusing to act upon it, then yes, take it to the authorities. By all means, take it to the authorities. But it's, it is the it is a it's a new law, so I mean, it's again not a great law, but because it should already be understood. But if we needed it, we needed it. The fourth new law prevents non-disclosure agreements from affecting the ability to gather information and witness testimony in civil lawsuits related to sexual harassment or assault, and permits discovery of past instances of sexual harassment or sexual assault in civil lawsuits, regardless of whether there was a non-disclosure agreement. So this goes right along with in my opinion, goes right along with the non-disclosure agreements from the beginning. But I can kind of see why they need to have it not quite retroactive, but that's the best word I have for it at this point, is that if other people have if it's been mentioned before that somebody's been accused, but nobody's been able to come forward because the case has been settled and non-disclosure agreements prevent people from talking about it. In a criminal aspect, I understand why that's the case, especially um, if settled. Basically, if you've chosen not to press charges, that's the end of the matter, especially if you've taken a monetary payment for it. However, in a civil case, I don't know exactly how that would work. I wonder if Dave can get the opinion of Pat the lawyer. I should actually. I have a lawyer friend. I might have to get in touch with him to see if he'd be willing to discuss things. I know he's fairly new in practicing law, but I really wonder how he would like to discuss things like this. Not necessarily on air, but just in general, I can pose questions to him about that. So overall, when it comes to sexual misconduct in the workplace, misconduct anywhere, in my opinion, is it's a bad thing, obviously, but one of those um, it's one of those things I just don't see necessarily why people think we need to have a black and white line to go by on these things. I mean, yeah, there are racy jokes out there. There are lewd jokes out there. It's yes, people can be offended by them. But being offended is not the same as being attacked, being assaulted. Socially constructing a morality in any sense is just wrong in my opinion. I should have the right to say what is on my mind, what's my opinion. That's why I do this. I do this for me because I have spent years of my adult life not feeling like my voice hasn't been heard through the electoral process. But I don't think that I'm able to discuss my opinions freely without being attacked. Now, putting it out here on YouTube, I can be attacked just as bad. It is what it is. But at the same time, trying to have just a simple discussion with anybody about politics in any walk of life is hard because I would love to sit down and talk. Like when I was working for a health insurance company, when the Affordable Care Act came out, I really wanted to discuss that with people, like what their opinion was. And I'm not talking about my customers that were calling me on the phone line because that would have made my calls hours long. And I was already struggling as it was. But trying to explain to my coworkers why I think it was a good stepping stone, a good starting point for what we truly need in this nation they didn't want to talk about it. And I respected that. It's not my place to force people to hear my opinion. It's not my place to force people to hear my rhetoric, to preach to them my beliefs, whatever you believe, political or religious beliefs or anything like that. But I should be able to say, "Hey, would you like to discuss this?" and not have to worry about HR coming to me or anybody else saying, "Hey, you shouldn't be talking politics at work." Why not? I understand not talking to the customers about that. I understand not talking to people about certain sensitive subjects, but at the same time, I should be able to discuss things that are relevant to our social to our social climate without fear of reprisal. I should be able to discuss things as myself, my own opinion, and not have my employer, corporate or mom and pop or otherwise, having to fear that my opinion has upset their customer base in any way. I should have that freedom of speech to do so. Now, if I am on the clock, obviously, I should not be discussing those things in front of customers or with customers, even if the customer brings it up. I don't know how many times during the last election I was asked about, am I going to vote for Hillary or am I going to vote for Trump? And I said I was probably going to vote for neither. And then they're like, oh, it's an abomination that you don't want to practice your things. And it wasn't, and I have to correct them. It's like, I'm not voting. It's like, I'm not going to vote, not vote. I'm just not going to necessarily choose who to vote for at this moment when things can change. When it came to the time that we got our ballots, it's a secret mail-in ballot. They don't need to know who I voted for, but it's who I voted for is who I voted for. That's between me and the election bureau and the Secretary of State, and they don't even need to record that I voted for particular people. You know, they just have to know that I voted, who my selection was, and not put it into a database. That's all there is to it. But like I said, many when it comes to talking just politics in general, part of part of me doing this, I'm always kind of a little hesitant to discuss controversial things or make my viewpoints very, very clear, like crystal clear, because of fear of losing my employment. But I'm doing this on my own time. I'm doing it how I want to. So, moving on. All right. Voter representation, the Voting Rights Act. Can we be original about things for a change? Seeks to reform representation of minorities in local elections. It opens the possibility of court challenges to cities, counties, and school districts to push them to switch from at large to district elections in areas where large minority groups are present. Under the new law, before someone can file a legal action, the political entity must be notified of the challenge to their election system, at which point they will have 180 days to remedy the complaint. 6 months after the the vote or the challenge to their election system. That's so I'm assuming how you would vote. After July 1st, 2021, political entities will have 90 days to propose the remedy before legal action can be filed. So if you are in a minority group and you feel that your voting system is not representative for you, it's an at-large system that includes the majority group in your area, you're going to be, able to file a complaint. I mean, it's just one of those things. I might dig into this one a little deeper and just try and figure out what the bill actually says If I have time at the end of this, I will try to do that really quick, but at the same time, I might want to make a separate show about it. And I'm going to try and actually start doing videos that are not a part of live radio on the Podcast 99 network, but I will make the audio available for being aired on the Podcast 99 radio network. So just keep that in mind. Just keep your eyes and ears out for that. And I may make a second channel that might be just totally dedicated to the politics side of things here. But anyways, another social justice one that really kind of grinds my gears. Pardon the the wording from Family Guy. Equal pay. Lawmakers passed a bill this year that seeks to reduce the wage gap between men and women and provide equal growth opportunities and fair treatment in the workplace. The new law modifies the state's Equal Pay Act by making it unacceptable for employers to retaliate against employees for asking about their wages or the salary of other employees. It also prohibits discrimination in providing career advancement opportunities based on gender. Okay, I am not one to hide. Hold on just a second here. For those of you listening to this on Podcast 99 or on the podcast later, I'm switching back to my camera view because this is just the gender pay gap or wage gap is not what they make it sound to be. All the Department of Labor statistics and everything show that a lot of the quote unquote, and I'm doing air quotes here, quote unquote, wage gap is more of an earnings gap, i.e., men are making life choices to stay and work longer, women are making other choices to be mothers, which they don't have to do. My wife and I have not had a child yet, and if we ever do decide to have a child, it's probably going to be via adoption. But be that as it may, she is not I do not expect her to be a stay-at-home mom for that child. I do not expect her to have to work. It's a choice that she makes herself. Now, I would appreciate the help financially for her to work. But again, if we need to acclimatize, say we adopt a foreign child, I would want her to spend time to help acclimatize the child to the culture that they're in. If we're getting a child that was born here in the US that we can raise as an infant all the way up, then it won't be as hard. But still, maybe some maybe some daycares won't take a child that young, etc. That is fine. I I understand those things. But there are also other issues that affect women as well, that people who are saying there is a pay gap, a wage gap, as in women make less in base pay or base salary, is for the same job, is their choice in career fields. One of those choices is not going into a STEM field, science, technology, engineering, and math. Those are some of the highest paying jobs in our country. If you are willing to work for them, if you expressed interest in doing those types of fields as a young lady, as a young child, your parents should have encouraged that. Your teachers should have nurtured that. If there's a change to that, that is not necessarily society's fault. That's your immediate group's fault. Kids are cruel, and yes, they will make fun of girls for wanting to be nerdy scientists or engineers or things like that. But to be honest, I don't care. You need to stand up for what you want to do. If you're expressing an interest in it, learn about it. Go and want to do it. Don't be like, oh, I have to go become a teacher because I'm a woman. No. Or don't be like, I have to run a daycare, or I have to work part time, or I have to do gender studies. No. These things that are catered towards women because of more maternal instincts are are not there to trap you in a systematic way. They are there because those are what society thinks you want to do. It's up to you to tell them, no, I want to go be a scientist. Speaking of female scientists, check out Scientist Mel on Twitter. She also has a YouTube channel. Honestly, some of the best content that I've learned about science in the last 2 to 3 months that I've known about her has literally been um, has literally been from her, watching her stuff, watching her on various other YouTube channels. At, yeah, her Twitter handle is at Scientist Mel. You really, really need to be um, checking her out. Sorry, I just went over to Twitter really quick to check out that. But the thing is we're trying to legislate everybody gets an equal outcome, not just the equal opportunity to do it. There's already laws on the books that prohibit discrimination based on gender. You don't need this law. You do not need it at all. But the problem is people don't see it that way. They hear about women make 77 cents or 82 cents, depending on intersectional intersectional crap you get classified into. We are a meritocracy, meaning that you work hard, you will be rewarded. Sometimes it may not be right away, but if you work hard, you will be rewarded. I am in the position that I am in financially because of choices I have made. It is not anybody else's fault. It is not the fault of society. I do not make as much because I did not go to school like I should have earlier on in my life. I am now trying to rectify that. I am going to school. I've already went to school and got my associates in software engineering. I am currently working towards getting a bachelor's in communications focusing on public relations. Once I'm done with that, I am hoping to be able to go back and do some more math skills, some more electronic skills, working in physics, maybe, just maybe, being able to become an engineer of some sort, electrical, maybe even going back for software engineering. And I can use my PR degree to help communicate for a company and maybe make the technical side of things more understandable to the layperson. But I have to work for that. I have to earn that. You do too. It is not that, well, I won't say it's not that hard. It is your choice to want to do it or not to do it. Yes, some people do have learning disabilities. Yes, some people have obstacles in their way, but that is part of life. Life is not fair. It is never going to be fair. It should never be fair. Once life is fair, we are going to stagnate as a culture worldwide. We will stagnate as a civilization. I believe in some socialist programs. I want the national health services that Britain has, or something similar to that, where I can go and not worry about go have a physical and not worry about finding out that I have something bad, and then be like, well, I'm in debt for the rest of my life because I can't pay off my hospital bills. Yeah, there's some charity work out there that might help me. I might qualify for, but you know, but people want to make their money off of everything. I mean, we're a capitalist society. Everybody wants to make money and be, you know, awarded for their merits. And I understand that. I get it. And I'm okay with that. To an extent. Yes, I do think that not everything, not everything needs to be covered under the NHS. Example, say I go in and have liposuction or I have lap band or some procedure that makes me skinnier relatively quicker than the traditional way, and I have all that flab, that excess skin, that would not be covered by the tax plan under what I envision to be our own universal healthcare, our own national healthcare. But heck, even the procedure, unless I am one of those people that is like literally medically can't lose weight because of thyroid conditions, glandular conditions, things like that, that would be okay. But if it's because I just want to look skinnier, no, that's not covered. We have to have discussions like that. But when we're trying to make everything all around us equal for everybody in every single way, we are not going to be able to have those discussions on the things that we could still keep our system of economy and still have the and still have what am I trying to say? And still have our actual, social progress to speak of. Like I said, the Affordable Care Act is a step in the right direction, but we're not there yet, in my opinion. Again, and then this is all my opinion about the social side of this, the social healthcare systems and stuff. But you can go to the Department of Labor, and I'll actually pull that up and link it into the description when I get a chance to. You can actually see that their studies have shown that it's not for a lack of opportunity, it is for their unwillingness to make the same choices that everybody else makes. Like, again, women don't always want to do what the men do. I mean, one example is, why do we not see as many female sewer cleaners? No, why not as many female garbage people? Because they don't want to do those jobs. I don't want to do those jobs, but somebody's got to do them. And those that want to do that or are willing to do it get paid more than I do working in a retail store. Go figure. Overabundance of retail workers don't make as much money, whereas doing something else that's a little more labor intensive, a little more arduous work, they're going to get paid more. So, it is what it is. Moving on, and again, I still don't think that this part at all makes any sense in why it's in this law. The prohibition of discrimination for career advancement based on gender. It's already in a majority of the equal pay laws that we have in this country and in this state. Why the heck do we have to add it? Why? I mean, I don't get it. The next major bill is students' free speech. High school and college students' right to publish and speak freely in school-sponsored media will be protected. Under the new law, editors will be fully responsible for determining what goes into their publication or broadcast. While school administrators would not be able to pre-review college students' work, school administrators at high school would be allowed to review content, but would not be allowed to censor any content before publishing it unless it contains libelous or slanderous material or is obscene or incites students to commit unlawful acts on school grounds. Okay. I am all for free speech. I have no problem with somebody talking about how they think people of color are inferior to white people. I have no problem with people saying that the earth is flat. I have no problem with people espousing their opinions. However, I, unlike other people, will draw the line at inciting actual violence against people. This is why I have a disagreement with Antifa. You are constantly out there talking about punching people you perceive to be Nazis. I mean, come on. Just because they don't align with you politically, but they're still liberal, does not make them alt-right. Does not make them a conservative. does not make them even close to a Nazi at all. But yeah, Antifa is out there. Gotta punch Nazis. You need to punch a Nazi. Whenever you see a Nazi, punch them. Screw that. If you punch me just for looking at me and assuming that I'm a Nazi, make it good, because I will fight back, because that's self-defense at that point. But, and this is a big but, you have every right to sit there and talk about how you do not agree with my opinion. And I have no problem with you doing it. You can sit here and come to my face while I'm at my job. You can come to me while I'm out in public and say, Jay, you are a freaking retard for not believing what I believe. And here's why. And give me any number of postulates that you want to, any number of examples of what you think I don't get. And that's fine. And I will gladly have a debate with you. I will gladly discuss the issues with you. I will gladly sit down and discuss just about anything. But when you tell me that you are for free speech and yet you're telling people that it's okay to punch people because they're Nazis, because they don't align with you ideologically or they don't agree with you ideologically, no, that's not okay. I don't know how people like Bearing on YouTube, Sargon of Akkad on YouTube, or anybody else for that matter on YouTube would agree with me that is very much pro free speech like I am. But I do draw the line at actual calling for violence against people. I take offense to people doxing people or swatting people. That's harassment. That is causing, violence towards people, especially if you swat them. That is just totally uncalled for. That is totally not even cool in my book and not part of free speech. You can disagree with me on that all you want. That's fine. I just don't share your opinion with that. You can tell me how I'm wrong. You can even swear me up one side and down the other. I'm not going to care. It is one of those it's just one of those things. It's like it's your opinion of me. You can even bring facts that I don't know about. I will go back and research those facts, but it's what it is. But when it comes to free speech, I think the high school part of this right here, this whole section right here, is for the good. The main part about the school administrators at high schools. I mean, the libelous or slander material. What if the school journalists want to discuss rags like the National Enquirer, the tabloids, things like that, and show them how those types of media work? We should be able to allow them to do that, as long as contextually we understand what they're going for. Obscene, that's personal. That's subjective, or not subjective. That yeah, it would be subjective. It's based on what the person wants to think or how they want to feel. Nobody nobody cares about other people's feelings. Truly, they only care about themselves and maybe a few close friends and family. But it is what it is. Dave could Dave from Dave Bowman podcast or Plausibly Live, show, wherever you catch it, or on the podcast 99, could come to me and tell me how he doesn't agree with anything of mine and he finds it offensive. But I doubt he would pull me from here unless I did something very egregious that would be considered obscene by everybody, by the society. But it is what it is. I mean, I don't know for sure how Dave would react to most of it, but most of anything that I would do that would be considered obscene, if anything. But I also know how society thinks, or at least in my perspective, how society thinks as a whole and which way we're going. And obviously, inciting students to commit unlawful acts on school grounds, like inciting them to bring guns to defend themselves in a no-gun zone. Yeah, you don't want that. I get that, and that's fine by me. And as a matter of fact, I think the colleges should be able to at least pre-review for that. If they like have the student say, "This is what I'm going to write a story about," and leave it at that. They don't need to know how the student's going to write it, but they can say, "Okay, well, since this is something that is considered unlawful, we want to review to see if it's going to be perceived by anybody to committing an unlawful act." Now, granted, college students are, for the most part, adults. Once you're an adult, you're responsible for yourself. I mean, that is what it is. But wow, I did pick right. Only going with this one article this week, but I've got 9 minutes to cover three more. Conversion therapy is unprofessional conduct for a licensed healthcare provider to perform conversion therapy. The trying to change a minor's sexual orientation or gender identity on a patient that is under 18 years of age. If a provider violates the law, they will face sanctions ranging from fines to license revocation or suspension. The measure does not apply to non-licensed counselors operating as part of a religious organization, religious denomination, or church. So, those of you who are not happy with your child being, how you would say, confused about their sexual orientation or their gender identity, can't take them to a medical professional, but you can take them to your church. I don't agree with that part, but at the same time, it is a separation of church and state. So it is what it is. And honestly, I think conversion, and I'm not a scientist, I'm not a healthcare provider, I'm not a mental health provider. I am no way qualified to speak as an authority on this. But just in my personal opinion, I think conversion therapy is a joke. I think it is totally a waste totally a waste of time for people to try. People have to be able to experiment. People have to understand and get to know themselves before they can truly be happy in this world. And as people in immediate families of family members, regardless of our religious orientations, our religious beliefs, or anything like that, we should support our children to explore, to get to know things. I'm not saying let them go buck wild and have, sex and orgies, without protection with or anything like that. Instill your values. But at the same time, if they come out to you saying, "Hey, mom, dad, I know I'm your son, but I truly feel like I'm a woman on the inside because, I f- that's how I feel," or "Mom or dad, I don't want to identify as a specific gender. I want to be referred to as it or them," or, things like that. Let them experiment. Their relationship with your deity, whoever it is their relationship. You may think it will reflect badly on you as a parent. I say no. It would actually make you look better as a parent. I think it would make you look like a true supporter of what your children need. Yes, they need structure, they need rules, they need boundaries, especially when they're younger. I mean, I'm not going to sit here and take a 3-year-old who's telling me, "Yeah, I think I'm a girl," seriously, or a girl thinking she's a boy, seriously, or even if they think that they're asexual or anything like that. Children will say just about anything because they don't understand the context. But as they get older and they start to experience puberty, they start to experience, social interaction in a more intimate way than they do in elementary school. We need to support them. If one of my nieces or one of my nephews came to me going through middle school or high school and told me that they thought that they were of the opposite sex or transgendered and wanted to, dress as, the opposite sex, I would support them to their parents' face if I had to, because I think that they have the right to do that. They need to have that ability. So, again, conversion therapy, not really a not really a benefit. But if you are religious and you are thinking about having a religious organization, a pastor, priest, or anything trying to perform this for you, think really hard about it. Think about what it's going to do to your relationship with your child. That I mean that excuse me, that is just I know this is such a downer topic. This is just I mean it's making me feel pretty bad as it is. But honestly, just think about your forgive the hell and lovejoy in me. Won't somebody think of the children? But honestly, think about the true health of your child, the mental health, that is. Yes, they might seem like a snowflake. They might seem like they're triggered. They might even seem like they're an actual SJW, which I don't care for those people, but I would much rather them be able to experiment and understand what life is truly like without the fear of disapproval from their parents. I know my mom and dad supported me when I joined the Navy. But boy, did I know they were not happy about it because I went behind their back. But at the time I was 18, I was able to make that choice myself. They wished I would have talked to them about it first before doing it, but at the same time, they respected me for it. And I know this is totally different than somebody coming out as, you know, their sexual orientation, gender identity. I get that. I'm not trying to compare apples to apples here. But what I'm trying to say is that my parents gave me the freedom to experiment with my life. They gave me the opportunity to do what I wanted to do in life. And they supported me for it. They may not have agreed with it. Lord knows I've made mistakes. But honestly, I love my parents for the fact that they let me go out into the world and make the choices that I've made. And they stand by me in my decisions. Again, they might not agree with me, but they do support me. Now, I do want to get this one in. I've got only a couple minutes left, but I really want um actually, I mean I could run over, but I don't want to. Washington is the first state to enact its own net neutrality requirements this year after the U.S. regulators repealed the Obama-era rules that ban internet providers from blocking content or interfering with online traffic. The new state law, which keeps those previous protections in place, was contingent on federal rules ending. So, unlike other laws taking effect Thursday, this measure won't be enacted until the rules expire on June 11th, which for us is in 1 day and 3 hours roughly. The state law will require internet providers to disclose information about their management practices, performance, and commercial terms. Violations are enforceable under the State Consumers Protection Act. More states need to do this. In all honesty, more states need to go into their legislative body and say, no, you are going to do this. Forget, forget what the federal government has said. Forget what the Trump administration has said by having the FCC do this. Screw that. I've got the age restriction in place. Fuck that. Just absolute fuck that. They need to do something like this. And I am glad Washington State was the first state to do this. You may be conservative, you may not support that, but in all honesty, net neutrality has been the best thing for us because then that way they are not censoring people. Like literally, without net neutrality, I could be censored. Without excuse me, sorry. Without net neutrality, conservatives can be censored. The people that you truly believe, like I have family that is deeply conservative, deeply religious in their values, and I know for the most part, support free speech. Maybe not to the extent that I do, but they do support it. Imagine having your voice blocked because you couldn't get online to express your opinion. Imagine if your internet was throttled because they know that you are an avid YouTube person. I mean, I have 11 subscribers. I mean, I'm not avid. I'm not a huge person, but to be all honest, in all honesty, I just want people to understand that net neutrality is a good thing, regardless of what you truly believe. I think it is one of the best protections that we have for, excuse me, one of the best protections that we have as a society to keep our voice free. I mean, if you truly want the Great Firewall of China here, by all means, let's let net neutrality go away. The internet providers will take care of that for you. You don't even have to worry about the state doing it, the government doing it. We can just let that go. I mean, imagine if you were a flat earther and you've had all these subscribers and the internet providers don't want your message going out there. Gone. They'll throttle you back. They'll do whatever they can. Oh, well, it's legal for us. There's no more net neutrality. So I'm running over in time, but I think it's worth it. Like I said, this whole article here is in theolympian.com, and I'm sure it's also you can probably find it on the Associated Press website. You could probably find it on the Tacoma News Tribune, or just about anywhere where your paper has an online presence with a political section. The link is in my description right now. Like I said, I'm going to try and pull up those labor statistics about the wage gap. I will try to get that in the next few days. However, I truly hope that you have enjoyed the show. Like I said, I'm being a little bit more adamant, hence why I wanted to go with the age restriction today. And I really thank you for listening to This Week in Politics, episode number 16, part of the Podcast 99 Internet Radio Network. And you can check us out on podcast99.org or contact me directly at jpoliticspodcast@gmail.com, or you can contact me on Twitter at jpolipodcast. I really thank you for listening. I really thank you for watching if you were watching me live, or if you were listening to me live on podcast99.org. I normally don't swear on these things. I normally don't do anything. So again, this is just one of those topics that I just really needed to get out there in the open. Take the time to watch and listen to any news source that you can get your hands on to understand both sides of the argument. Thank you. Have a wonderful weekend. Enjoy your summer break if you're on vacation. Have a great weekend.